A Yoruba-speaking Islamic cleric, Shafiy Adabe, has sparked controversy after making inflammatory remarks in a video in which he appeared to justify fighting and enslaving non-Muslims. Speaking largely in Yoruba while also incorporating Arabic expressions and references to the Quran, Adabe repeatedly used the term kafir when referring to people outside Islam. His remarks have generated serious concerns about religious rhetoric, the interpretation of Islamic teachings, and the potential consequences of statements involving violence against people based on their faiths. In the video, Adabe appears to argue that Muslims have a religious right to fight and enslave non-Muslims, while also calling for the imposition of what he described as Islamic laws on them.
Anyone gbọ́dọ̀ lọ́jà wọ́n gbọ́dọ̀ lóko wọ́n gbọ́dọ̀ lọ́jà ẹ ti lẹ̀kùn mọ́ wọn ẹ gbọ́dọ̀ jáde agbọ́dọ̀ ní yíta ẹ sédè mọ́ wọn. Àwa mùsùlùmí lálẹ́tọ́ àti ṣe kèfèrí mọ́lé kì í ṣe kèfèrí ni ó lẹ́tọ́ àti ṣe wa mọ́lé. wakihudu lahum kullu marsadin bí tá bá ti bá wọn ẹ fìdí wọn gúnlẹ̀ síbẹ̀ gbogbo ẹ bá wọn ní bòbá tán fa pamọ́ sí ẹ̀dì wọn bẹ̀ ẹ̀dì wọn bẹ̀ ẹ tilẹ̀kùn mọ́ wọn bẹ̀ ntọ́lọ́ sọ náà kúrò nínú. mo fi sọ bẹ́ẹ̀ ọ̀rọ̀ mi pé n tó yẹ kẹ́ ṣe tẹ́ ẹ̀ bá ṣe lórí ẹnìkan tẹ́ni ẹnìyẹn yóò ṣe tiẹ̀ yóò ṣe nǹkan ẹ̀ máa fún ìfẹ́yìn o ohun tó yẹ kẹ́ ṣe fún yàn tẹ́ ẹ̀ bá ṣe òun ó ṣe tiẹ̀ fún yín o ẹni tó yẹ kẹ́ arrest tiẹ̀ tẹ́ ẹ̀ bá arrest tiẹ̀ òun arrest yín.
He made a series of claims about restricting non-Muslims and preventing them from carrying out ordinary activities, while presenting his position as being supported by religious teachings. The statements have attracted attention because they go beyond the theological discussion and appear to advocate cohesive action against people because they do not share the same religion. Among the remarks attributed to Adabe are claims that Muslims have the right to enslave the kafir and that non-Muslims should be attacked unrestricted. He also invoked the Quran while making these statements, presenting his interpretation as religious justification for the action he described. Because the comments involve serious allegations about violence and enslavement, they have raised questions about the responsibility of religious figures when discussing sensitive issues in a country where Muslims and Christians live side by side across most regions. The term kafir is central to the controversy surrounding the video. The Arabic term has different theological and contextual uses in Islamic literature and is commonly translated in various contexts as disbeliever, non-believer, or infidel. In Adabe's remarks, however, the word was specifically used when discussing non-Muslims in the context of fighting and enslavement. That particular use has intensified concerns about whether the language could contribute to hostility towards people outside the Islamic faith. It is important, however, to distinguish the statements of one cleric from the disbelief of an entire religious community. Nigeria has millions of Muslims who hold different theological, political, and social views, and the remarks of an individual preacher should not automatically be presented as representing every Muslim or Islam as a whole. Religious traditions contain extensive debates about historical texts, warfare, political authority, and relations between communities, and different scholars can interpret those issues in different ways. The controversy becomes even more sensitive when considered against Nigeria's wider security environments. The country has experienced years of violence involving terrorist organizations, armed groups, communal conflicts, and criminal networks. Religious identity has sometimes been exploited by violent actors to justify attacks or mobilize support against that background. Statements that appear to endorse violence or enslavement based on religious identity can attract particular concern from communities already worried about insecurity and intolerance. There is also a broader question about the influence of religious leaders. Clerics and other religious figures can command significant attention among their followers, particularly when their messages are delivered in local languages that makes them accessible to large audiences. When such figures discuss political or social issues, their words can influence how followers perceive people from other religious communities. That is why statements appearing to encourage hostility deserve careful scrutiny rather than being dismissed as ordinary political or theological commentary. Adeba's remarks also emerged amid another controversy involving a prominent Islamic cleric, Sheikh Yahya Jinge, who was reportedly to have spoken in support of Muslim political tickets. Jinge reportedly made the comments at an event in Kano State supporting Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf, an event tagged Abba Go Again. Speaking in Hausa, Jinge urged Muslims to obtain their permanent voter cards and encourage support for Muslim political arrangements ahead of future elections. Jinge also praised President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for promoting a Muslim ticket and described himself as a strong advocate of the arrangements. He acknowledged that Christians and other religious groups had expressed opposition to Muslim political tickets, but questioned whether his support for the arrangement amounted to wrongdoing. The comments have added another layer to an already intense national conversation about religion and politics. The timing of this development is significant because Nigeria is gradually moving into another politically charged period ahead of the 2027 general election. Political parties are already positioning themselves. Religious and community leaders are becoming more vocal, and debates about representation and identity are becoming increasingly prominent. Against this backdrop, statements from influential clerics can quickly become part of wider political arguments, particularly when they touch on questions of religious powers and national leadership. But there is a critical distinction between advocating for a political candidate based on shared religious identity and making statements that appear to endorse violence against people of another faith. Political expression is protected within democratic society, but rhetoric involving violence, enslavement, or prosecution raises a fundamentally different set of concerns. The public deserves to know where political and religious advocacy ends and potentially dangerous incitement begins. Another issue is the role of social media in amplifying controversial statements. A religious speech delivered to a limited audience can now reach millions of people within hours when clips are uploaded to platforms such as TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Short clips can also be shared without the surrounding context of a longer sermon, making it difficult for viewers to understand exactly what a speaker intended. That made responsible reporting particularly important. In Adabe's case, the available video has already generated considerable attention because of the seriousness of the statements attributed to him. Rather than allowing social media reactions alone to determine the meaning or consequences of the remarks, the claims should be examined carefully, including the exact wording, the broader context of the speech, and any response from reorganized Islamic scholars or relevant authorities. Nigeria's religious diversity makes responsible public discourse especially important. Muslims and Christians make up the overwhelming majority of the population, while people from traditional faiths and other backgrounds are also part of the country. In many communities, families and neighbors from different religions live together, work together, and participate in the same social and economic networks. Rhetoric that portrays another religious group as inherently deserving of violence or enslavement can therefore have implications far beyond the original speaker and audience. At the same time, criticism of Adabe's remarks should not become an excuse for attacking Muslims generally. The appropriate focus should remain on the specific statements made and whether they cross legal, ethical, or religious boundaries. Collective blame would only deepen the division that responsible public discourse should seek to reduce. The controversy ultimately raises a difficult but important question. What responsibility should religious leaders carry when speaking to large audiences about people of other faiths? Freedom of religion and freedom of expression are fundamental principles. But so too is the responsibility to avoid rhetoric that can encourage violence or hatred. In a country as complex as Nigeria, influential voices have the power either to reduce tensions or intensify them. As the video continues to circulate, attention will likely turn to whether Adabe provides further clarification, whether Islamic scholars respond to his interpretation, and whether relevant authorities consider the remarks serious enough to warrant investigation. Those developments could help determine how the controversial statements are understood and whether any action follows. What is already clear is that the remarks have opened another difficult conversation about religion, violence, political identity, and public responsibility in Nigeria. The country has seen the consequences of division before, and the stakes are too high for inflammatory rhetoric to be treated casually. At a time when Nigerians need greater understanding across religious lines, statements appearing to justify violence or enslavement against people because of their faiths deserve careful examination, responsible reporting, and where necessary, appropriate accountability. If you find this report informative, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss important updates on Nigeria and major developments around the world. I'm Chidera Isom. Thanks for watching.